Hello there. I'm Sam Reynolds, and I'm going to be presenting a workshop in Florida for the South Florida NCGR chapter. And I will have a workshop on prediction boot camp and talking about various techniques and prediction, specifically techniques to use from my own toolbox and things I've learned over the years. And Scott Silverman, my buddy, has sent me a list of 20 questions to answer in rapid fire. We'll see how well I do with that. And so I'm just going to tackle each one of these questions and see what happens. I reviewed them, so it's not like they're foreign to me, but still a few are tricky. Where and when were you born? November 22nd, 1967, 1:19 p.m., Buffalo, New York. How long have you had a professional astrology practice? So I've been in practice since 2002, and I have been studying astrology since I went to an astrologer in 1990. I believe it was actually this month, October 1990. Who was your first astrology teacher? This was a tricky question because for a long time, like many of us, I was self-taught. I got whatever books I could find. So my first set of books were books by Marion D. March and Joe McEvers, The Only Way to Learn Astrology. So those were my unofficial teachers. And then I would say my actual teachers, or I would count in terms of physical teachers, people I've met, I would say Robert Zoller and John Marcasella here in New York. So I would count those as my, among my initial teachers, physical teachers. And Robert Zoller, pretty much from his study course, but I met him in person for my first conference, an NCGR conference, and he blew my mind with some of the things he had to say. So that's what I remember. Who was my best teacher? You try to get me in trouble, Scott. I'll be straightforward. I think who I learned a lot from initially, and that would be my qualification of best in terms of who I kind of draw on more frequently than not, would be Alan Oken. I studied with him in his esoteric astrology and his astrology or his wisdom school traditions and teachings for about 3 or 4 years. And I benefited from them immensely, even though I'm not a practicing esoteric astrologer anymore. In your humble opinion, what is the most outstanding feature in your chart? I would say it's my 9th house, and it's outstanding because I think it really does describe my sun in the 9th house. I don't know if I said that part. I would say the sun in the 9th house really describes a lot of my life, from traveling a lot to becoming an astrologer, because the 9th house traditionally deals with astrology, to being a former preacher, to being a former professor. Just really captures a lot about me. What are your preferred predictive techniques when engaged in the act of forecasting? Well, that's what we're going to talk about during the workshop. But my go-tos are profection, solar returns for the year, and secondary progressions. Those are the things I really hone in on and drill to the bit whenever I look at a chart. And when I say whenever I look at a chart, whether it's a 30-minute session, 15-minute session, or even an hour session, I look at those 3 things. Have you ever encountered the chart of a client that was especially resistant to prediction? And I'm laughing because Scott knows that we have. It's actually a client that has been passed between at least 3 or 4 astrologers to our knowledge. And it's hard to nail things for this particular guy. So yes, is the answer. What is your preferred house system this season? Very good question, because it has changed over time. It is whole sign houses, has been for a good, I want to say 8 years. So I've been more a whole sign house system person. Most important advice to share with a journeyman astrology? Study everything and learn more why. Do not accept anything on its face value. Research on the whys as much as you can. How often do you look at your wife's chart? I don't really have to look at it as much as because I think I've pretty much memorized it. I think we both know each other's charts because she's an astrologer too. So just kind of pings. And sometimes I forget degrees, but pretty much know the placements. With or without her permission. Well, like I said, it's in my head. So I don't know if I have to ask her as much. Do you have any favorite teaching charts that exemplify a particular delineation technique? Yes. I have what I call a FUBAR chart, and FUBAR is a military term that actually has two reference points. One is like fucked up beyond all recognition, and the other one is fucked up beyond all relief. And both relate to when I teach essential dignities, this particular chart. Um, it usurps a lot of the assumptions that we have about essential dignities. So I won't reveal who because I might be using that. So, but I do have a favorite teaching chart. Where do you live these days? Newark, New Jersey. Was astrocartography a factor in your decision to move there? No, gentrification. What mundane celestial configurations are you currently keeping an eye on? I'm not really a mundane person, but generally I am curious to look at the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. I also do pay attention to eclipses. So I am curious to see what manifests with what I call the Kwanzaa eclipse on December 26th on the East Coast in the United States. And definitely the Pluto return for the United States. So that's what I would focus in on. Which astrological authors have been an ongoing source of inspiration for you? Um, I would say that I keep coming back to the books of Judith Hill. And I was also very inspired by Jeffrey Cornelius's books or book, The Moment of Astrology. And I should have thought more about this. I'll look over at my shelf and see if there's anything else. Oh, Rob Hand. So I'm a fan of Rob Hand. And so I do derive inspiration from him because, like I answered the other question about the journeyman, Rob has pretty much done all different elements of astrology, which brings me to another person, Demetra George, who also has been fearless in looking at various forms of astrology. What, if any, significant transits, directions, or progressed aspects are you having on the day of the workshop here in South Florida? Excellent question. I should know that because I should be looking at my chart, but I have not. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to cheat and basically figure out like, okay, I can extrapolate. I believe the key thing I'll be dealing with is a Venus pretty close to my Mercury. I'm having a Neptune, that's generally been true, a Neptune square to my midheaven. I'll be dealing with the lingering effects of a Saturn square to my Venus. So these should all be interesting things. A Mars applying to my Venus. So there you go. Are you planning to tweet about your experience lecturing for our organization afterwards? Sure. What advice do you have for astrologers wanting to develop a greater presence on social media? Consistency, and talk to people as if they're people, not astrologers, as if they don't know anything about astrology. Do you feel that your social media presence has been a factor in attracting more younger audiences to attend major conferences? Absolutely. And he says he went beyond the 20 questions. So, I mean, I guess he's, because my birthday is 11/22, is going with 22 is a master number. Here are two more questions to answer for your membership. Is there anything that you would like workshop attendees to do in order to prepare for your lecture? Yes, bring your charts. Yeah, bring your charts and be prepared to talk about your favorite techniques as well, or your take on some of them. Will you be available for readings after your lecture? Unfortunately not. I won't be in South Florida that long, and but people can book a session with me once I get back to Newark the following week. and we can do it remotely. All right. I don't know if that was rapid fire, but that was as fast as I could. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. And I hope to see you at the workshop on the 19th.